And now that I've done that, I can introduce everybody. So, first and foremost, again, thank you for joining us. This is our November Mid-Market Tech Talk. We're going to be talking about storage as a service, and we've got a couple of our subject matter experts. We have Julio Hernandez. He is part of our worldwide product manager for storage as a service. And then kind of our boots on the ground that helps us manage this at a localized level is Michael Mortensen. Both of those guys are part of the storage as a service unit. And then our host and moderator, as usual, is Roger Caston, and he'll kind of kick things off here. So, Roger, I will turn it over to you. Go on mute, and we'll be monitoring the chat function. So, if you've got any questions, please do not be shy. We'll get to them. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and hello to everybody. Thanks for many of you returning, and thank you to those who are new to this. Today we have an interesting, should be fun discussion around pay-for-use storage, and I'm actually really tickled because a number of years ago I was approached by somebody I didn't really know, many of you may, Jeff Barnett, who said, hey, we're getting ready to do this new offering, and I'd like you to help me get ready for, I think it was called FAST back then. Now we call them SKOs. And it was all around pay-for-use storage and storage utility offering. And we'll be hearing a lot more about that today. What's amazing to me is how many people aren't really familiar with what IBM is doing, and yet this is a really significant area and a significant play. As Scott mentioned, today we have Julio and Michael on to help us, which is great. I think we'll get a lot of the answers that many of you are looking for. So with that, let me just jump in and ask either of you, what are IBM's current pay-for-use storage offerings?
Let me jump in, Roger, and thanks for that introduction. And yes, you're right. I mean, I think people, according to the analyst, these type of a business acquisition models are widely used today and forecasting to a higher adoption in between now and the upcoming years, 2025, for instance. And storage infrastructure is customers are one of the biggest adoptions of these pay for use type of offerings. And when it comes down to storage as a service, we have like a two consolidated offerings. The first one is the storage utility offering and the storage as a services. We're going to be talking about in depth into the differences between the two models, but I can say you that both of them are based on base subscription and variable use capacity, and what is called pay for use. Specifically, from the storage utility offering, we have hardware and software offerings, and so we can consider this as a some sort of a combination of capex and opex, and I will explain that. From the capex point of view, there are on options to acquire the infrastructure or the base configuration. So fundamentally, a customer commits to base subscription, and basically this can vary between 30 to 50% according to their current usable capacity. IBM deploys an excess capacity used to be able to manage your potential growth over time. So we have the options for purchase, for rent, or lease. With regards to the variable use capacity, it's billing upon a monthly average, and it's billed on a quarterly basis and a cost per terabyte. One important thing to highlight is that we are charging for the exact same cost per terabyte as the base or the commit capacity. We're leveraging cloud-based monitoring that is called a product that's called Storage Insight for most of the cases. We can also leverage other type of metering. That is from a very generic standpoint. So storage utility offering it's offer across the storage, flash system, DSAK, ESS, cloud object storage, and we also have a software utility offering for storage protect and storage virtualize. The second option is the storage as a service, in which we have 100% OPEX type of offering. Fundamentally, it works based on the kind of the same approach for this base subscription on an annual basis, and the variable usage capacity that is monitoring on a quarterly basis and average consumption. Specifically on the storage as a service, we offer a more profound or a more or a broader service approach with a life cycle services, including expert care premium, plus the possibility for dynamic scaling on the deployed capacity, a technology refresh to maintain the service level objectives. Um, in There's a one specific aspect that differs from the storage utility offering, which has to do that we have in order to support this approach, we have deployed and standardized architecture of technology, something that we call building blocks, right? In order to address the specific service levels that we have, and in this particular case, the client cannot take ownership at the end of the term. While in the SUO, you can buy out the infrastructure by the end of the term, except in the rent options that I explained at the beginning. I will stop right here in order to if there's any questions or if Michael wants to expand or complement this initial information on the offerings that we have for pay per use. Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Julio. I did see that someone wanted us to start throwing up slides, right? And I think, the format of this discussion is to more, have a conversation. There are no shortage of slide decks out on our seismic page. So I'm not sure who's moderating the chat. So Terry wants to unmute himself and ask a question. But before we unmute, right? The one thing that I want to point out is that the industry is moving in this pay-for-use direction very quickly, as Julio started out talking about. What I want you to walk away from with pay-for-use is that it's something that we all need to learn how to talk about with clients, because most of them, if not all of them, are asking about it or will be asking about it soon, right? It's nothing for any of us on the phone to be fearful from. If there are clients, we welcome having these discussions. All it is really a shift from a CapEx acquisition model to a different type of acquisition model, right? And as Julio talked about, we've had our storage utility offering since 4Q of 17, and then we pivoted to the STAS offering and which storage utility is still available, by the way, right? And we can talk more about the differences, but storage as a service is more of a true, think of it as on-prem cloud. That's what I want you to think about, right? And it is designed to be our alternative, for clients that are being pressured to look at cloud or think that cloud is the answer. And we can deliver better pricing than cloud with on-prem equipment, right? And give them all the performance and security of on-prem with the financial benefits of cloud, right? So that's what we're really here to talk about. Should we unmute it now, or Julio, did you want to bring up a couple slides, or do you want me to show a couple slides?
Well, and if I could mention something real quick, the question was also asked, is this just for existing clients or new clients? The answer is it's for anybody. And I think Michael did a great job in saying this is like cloud, in your organization. You know, the beautiful thing is if you need capacity, you get capacity. If you need more capacity than what's currently allocated, it's already in the box. It just gets allocated and made available. Here, it's perfect. He put up a slide, and he had mentioned this base subscription. And this is for storage utility offering that we're seeing here, that you have this base, you know, let's do something with easy math. Let's say there's 100 terabytes involved, just because I can do the math real simple in my head. So the base subscription would be, you know, 40% of the total capacity. You'd have it right from the start. And after that, you have all this other capacity in the box that's not being used, but if you need it, it's there, and you only pay for it when you're using it. So if you have a big project that comes up and you need that capacity, it's there, and you get charged while you're using it. But as you can kind of see from that blue graph, if that project comes to an end and a lot of that data is retired or moved permanently off to tape and you're just not using that capacity, your pricing goes down. So it truly is a variable use type of thing. I just wanted to point that out. And this is still sort of a combination of CapEx often and OpEx when you're looking at storage utility. IBM also has something called storage as a service, STAS, where it's OpEx. It's just the whole thing. And I'll just turn it back over to you, gentlemen, and you can pick it up and chat with folks.
And I just tried to unmute Terry. So Terry, if you can hear me, see if you can
I'm
throw a
here.
question out there.
I'm here and I'm never without questions. So, hey, Scott.
Hey
So here's my basic question sets for the other guys. I'm a cross-brand system architect for 10 years here in IBM, came from Hewlett Packard. I was selling this in 2012, 13, and 14. I'm sorry, 2010, 11, 12 at Hewlett Packard. And so my questions are this. It's basically from the customer side. Number one, who takes title to the equipment, right? So number two, it looks like a IBM Global Finance leasing process with some metered process. So that leads to the second question, which is how is it metered? How does IBM know how much to charge the customer? There must be a metering tool underneath the system. It sends, it goes through the firewall. It sends an email to somewhere in a billing process, and the customer gets a new bill. So, and then storage as a service is in, and I'm an account technical leader for all things IBM for a squad here in Dallas. So storage as a service is generally a cloud function, and the customer doesn't own the equipment, right? That's why we need to be very differentiating here. So that was a number of questions in the middle of my dissertation there. I want to understand, what does the customer get? Who takes title? How does he get billed? How does it get measured? Is it a lease, etc.?
Yeah, that's if anyone's listened to an earnings call, you know, when a company like IBM presents their quarterly earnings, you know, before they open the Q&A, the moderator always says, we'd ask you to refer from multi-part questions.
That's I'm not at a loss for questions. That's Scott knows that.
And none of the analysts do it. I always laugh, right? Because they'll get on and just like you, the last 3, 4, or 5 questions, it's like, where do you start, right? And that's okay. I mean, we'll try and take them all one at a time, right? So title. Let's just talk about title, for example, right? With our storage utility offering, we've got multiple different options with regards to the title, right? So let's just, look at this slide. So how do you acquire that base subscription of capacity? Well, So this is, and you brought up one important point that I didn't make clear, right? Where these offerings are different than cloud, right? Is that we have to ask customers to commit to a certain amount of capacity, right? Whereas cloud, you can just go on and you can put one terabyte out there and start at 1 terabyte, and whenever you get around to moving more, you move more. We can't do that with these offerings because this involves IBM shipping, some very expensive equipment. So even though customers always ask for zero commit, right? We want you to ship $1 million asset and put it on the floor. And when we get around to using it, we want to pay you for it. Well, the unfortunate answer to that is public cloud, and we can't do that, right? And the easiest analogy to make is that when you're acquiring a new automobile for your family, right? Can you go to the Lexus dealer and say, ship me a new Lexus LS 600, and I'll pay you per mile, but stick it in my garage, even though it costs $100,000. And when I start driving that thing, I'll pay you. Well, their answer is that new automobile or that piece of computer equipment starts depreciating the moment that it gets shipped out the door, right? And so we can't offer that much flexibility. We do have to ask customers to commit to a certain amount of base capacity, right? Now to your question on title. For a storage utility, customers can either pay cash for the equipment, right? And they obviously acquire the title to the equipment if they pay cash for it, or they can lease it, right? What I'm looking at is this array on the right. That's the bottom fourth of it is shaded dark blue, right? The customer is going to acquire the title to the entire array, right? But we're only going to give them the right to use a certain percentage of it, right? They can either pay cash for that, or they can lease that, or when the pandemic hit and everyone's capital got frozen, we came out with a rental option. So customers can rent that where they don't take title to it, right? And with leasing, obviously the leasing company takes title, but IBM will rent this equipment to them as well, right? So hopefully that answers your question. With STAS, right, because it's a service, right, the customer can never take title to it, right? So some customers want to be able to take title to it, like with utility, if they sign up for a 3-year agreement, at the end of the agreement where we're metering the capacity, they have full rights to the entire machine. That's one of the big differentiators between IBM and some of our competitors is, with storage utility, at the end of the term, the customer has full rights, right?
So
And
we've paid it off in 3 years as an example.
Yeah.
But during that time, we might have only used 50% of it.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah.
But at the 3rd year, we own the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And obviously, if they lease that amount for, if they lease the base for 3 years, at the end of the 3 years, we're going to stop metering. They can either send the asset back to IGF or they can buy out the lease and own it, right? With the rental option, we don't have a contractual option for them to actually buy it. So there are 3 different flavors of storage utility: buy, lease, rent, right?
So this lease then has to be totaled at the total price of the whole asset that's amortized across the 3 years.
Well,
otherwise I would run it at 50%, and at the third year I own the whole thing and only paid for half of it.
Well, so there are different. We're getting into the weeds a little bit, but that's okay. So when you think about a lease, right? IGF doesn't care whether we're doing utility on this box or not, right? So IGF is just our IBM's financing arm that we subsidize so they can give a low interest rate, just like the car dealers subsidize their financing arm, right? They do look at residual values. What's the residual value of something after 3 years, right? Yeah. That's a different number than after 5, right? Yeah. And so I would tell you,
I don't want to consume your whole call, but those are the thoughts that I'm trying to be the customer here, and ask the questions he would ask.
Yep. So. And everyone on the phone, whether you're an IBM or a partner or a customer, everyone has to understand, how this equation works, because I do this all day, every day. And I'm overwhelmed, quite frankly. So I need help from all of you to get smart on this and be able to have conversations with customers, right? And that's why I encourage everyone to do one of these proposals, right? Because I can show you charts all day long. you probably won't learn it if you're like me until you actually do one, right? So I usually end calls by saying, I encourage you to find one opportunity in your environment. If you're a customer, look at one, niche piece of your business, or if you're a partner, look at one customer and come up with one opportunity to talk to us about, right? Obviously with Flash and DS8, we can offer as a service. Why can we offer as a service? Because the reason why everyone wants to get into the as a service game is there's no there's no commitment to ship out brand new equipment, right? So all of a sudden it's a use for slightly used equipment, right? If it meets the performance needs, all the SaaS agreements are based on a service level agreement, right? So if you look at our balanced tier of Flash, I don't know, Julio, do you have that slide of the different tiers of Flash or DS8?
And while you're looking for that, I'll mention the answer to the other question, Terry, that you raised on the metering is Storage Insights meters. And like with STAS, Storage Insights Pro is just part of the offering. So it's seeing what's going on and keeping track from a metadata standpoint.
Yeah. I just wrote that in
the other
chat
reason
when you said that.
Yeah.
So the other reason I wanted to mention that is that, Michael just mentioned with storage utility, we're dealing with with STAS, storage as a service. We're dealing with Flash System or DS8000. And many of you know that with Flash System, IBM earlier in the year introduced inline data corruption detection, where we can automatically spot activity out of the norm taking place. Well, one of the interesting things is that in order to take advantage of inline data corruption detection, a client must have Storage Insights Pro.
Yeah.
Which you get with storage as a service. So you're actually set up as a client from day one to also gain this extra level of protection from the very software that's also metering the system.
Great point, Roger. So yeah, the metering is pretty simple, right? IBM has a project office that a peer of Julio's pays for. It's a team of people that meter all of our pay-for-use equipment around the world. And what they do is once a day using Storage Insights or Insights Pro, they go out and take a snapshot at a random point during the day of what's being written to. And this is a big differentiator between IBM and our competition, right? Is that we only meter based on physical usable capacity, written to data, right? If a customer is getting 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, that's all their benefit. We do everything based on physical usable capacity. So this project office goes out and takes a snapshot once a day. They total up all the days of the month that they get a reading for, and they average it, right? And Roger mentioned a box that has 100 terabytes of base committed, right? Let's say that customer averages 101 terabytes for the month of January. We install on January 1. They average 101 terabytes of written to data in Storage Insights, right? And let's say for February, they average 101 terabytes. And for March, they average 101 terabytes. The first week in April, the project office creates a configuration to put in the global partner portal for the partner to go out and look at, this is the configuration for 3 terabytes of variable billing. And they process that. It looks to everyone like it's an upgrade to the system, but we're not shipping anything. It's just a billing configuration, right? And the partner's going to bill that client for 3 terabytes because they were 1 terabyte over for each of the 3 months. Does that answer your question on how variable billing works? We measured
assume it does. He's back off, but I noticed that Michael Williams has had his hand up
for a while. Okay.
So if you want to come off mute, Michael Williams, and ask your question. Well, he's still on mute. So
Julio, can you make that slide a little bit bigger somehow?
Which one? This one?
Yeah, the one that you're on there. it's a little bit difficult to
And
see.
Michael Williams, I
Just
think
to
I
let-
just unmuted you. So
Well, let me just talk to the slide that Julio has up because it's pretty important, right? So storage as a service, with storage as a service, you don't get to custom configure the box that we're going to ship, right? The customer is going to pick how much they want to commit to, right? And which of these performance tiers they need, right? And you can see for Flash, we've got 3 tiers, and for DS8, we've got 3 tiers. And we're also started running a pilot for TS7700, right?
Correct.
And so the Flash tiers, you can see that there's an extreme performance tier, which IBM guarantees 4,500 IOPS. And then the premium tier is 2,250 and the balance is 800. How do we get to those numbers? Well, with the extreme, we have to use our 9,500 running 9.6 terabyte drives. And then the premium, we ship a 9,500 with 19.2 terabyte flash core modules. And the balance is a 7,300 with 38.4s, right? And the nice thing about STAS is you don't have to figure out where your end, your end configuration that you want, right? Because IBM's going to ship additional capacity, and we meter it. When the customer gets to 85% utilization, we're going to ask them if they want us to dispatch an SSR to install additional drives or an additional controller if needed. So you can start at 100 terabytes and you can grow to 100 exabytes if you want. We'll just keep shipping more capacity.
Yeah, and I think that represents an advantage, right? Because definitely you want to optimize, whatever financials, and you can think about this. Start at the usable capacity that you currently have, depending on the different workloads and the scenarios, and then you can start growing from that point, but exclusively using, the capacity that you need, and that's one of the biggest advantages of this STAS model.
And there are a couple questions that came in. One of them from David was, why would anyone choose anything higher than the minimum base capacity if the variable rate is identical to the base rate? And
Great.
the answer is they wouldn't. That
Well-
is the beauty of our approach.
Yeah.
Is you
Well,
go
let me-
with the minimum.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that question, right? So our minimum commit go back to that slide, Julio, that you were just on. Yeah. So why would anyone commit to more than the minimum required? So with our extreme, we can go with, you can see that it says the extreme has a minimum of 25 terabytes, right? The premium has a minimum of 50 terabytes. The balance has a minimum of 100 terabytes. Why is that? Because when we ship out a controller, we have to put at least 7 flash core modules into the system, right? And in order to make it function, right? So that's the minimum. Why would anyone choose, if they can go as low as 100 terabytes or as low as 25? Why would they ever commit to more than that? Well, the answer is the more capacity we have, hitting that controller, right, the lower price per terabyte we can offer, right? So and there is a list pricing chart that's out in Seismic. If you look in the seller deck, right, where you see the tiers of pricing, is that generally the more capacity a customer commits to, the lower price per terabyte we can offer, because there's just more flash core modules hitting that controller cost. All right.
Right, and I'll absolutely agree with that. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there's a reason why the base is fixed as a
Exactly.
percentage, and then the beauty is you do only pay for what you use beyond
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And that is different than a lot of the competition. I would like to point out one thing. I put into the chat links to the IBM storage utility offering and links to the storage as a service offering that are out on Seismic. And when you go there, this is what the storage utility offering page looks like, and there's a link right at the top that will let you jump over to the storage as a service offering. So you can come in here and check out the information. In fact, we've even tried to sort of set it up as here's 5 steps getting into it with the appropriate documentation. But I also wanted to provide these links so that anyone who has an interest in storage utility or storage as a service can come in here and register for an upcoming webinar on November 15th over what's new with storage utility and storage as a service. So by all means, feel free to register, because clearly you all have a lot of questions, and hopefully a lot of those questions will be addressed in that webinar, where you will have a chance to see the charts that have been requested and get sort of examples, perhaps side by side, of what's the difference. And I can give you my 2 cents for the difference. And Michael, if you have a different opinion, by all means share it. But, storage utility is what we came out with first. And I refer to storage utility as still more of a technical sale, in that we're dealing with a specific system, a specific configuration. We talk about the hardware a lot. And that hardware could be anything, could be scale, could be flash system, could be DS8, could be whatever. So it's a lot like a traditional sale in that respect. As Michael and Julio mentioned, when we talk about STAS, storage as a service, it's just that. It's a service. So it doesn't tend to be as technical of a sale. We're not quite so hardware centric. It's more about just meeting whoever the client's requirements are. But I would encourage you to all, please feel free to register, because I think you'll have an opportunity to hear a lot of that information that you're curious about.
Yeah. Let me just jump in real quick, because I did see a question in the chat, and I just saw another question pop up.
Real quick, Michael.
Yep.
Michael Williams has kind of had his hand in the air for a while, and we've got him unmuted. So, Michael, if you can hear me, ask away, my friend.
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'll be real quick, Michael. I've been listening closely to this stuff, and I've been around doing this for a while too. Like I did 360s. Okay. So, it looks to me that storage SOU or SUO is an ideal circumstance for production environments that need to have a higher level of storage management services, and they don't have the manpower or capability of introducing those services. That's all those add-ons that you guys talked about, where you can detect, fraud going on, or detect somebody attacking the storage and all that kind of stuff, malware, whatever, right? That's great, right? And I don't know how we can set it up for ourselves. We just don't have the budget to do it. So if you can buy it as a service, it's wonderful. Okay. The storage as a service offering seems to me more appropriate if you're involved in a development effort or a trial effort, because you can. And I support federal clients. I'm a consultant. I support federal clients, so I have to deal with the realities of fiscal budget, federal budget. Okay, so anything I encourage my clients to buy, they have to budget for it. So I have to understand what my capacity on storage as a service is going to be, and I have to buy it for that year.
Michael, you hit a very interesting point. We have, that's true. The type of use cases that you are alluding to. Nonetheless, we can identify at least 4 or 5 more different use cases that customers can leverage and benefit of this consumption model. I'm gonna give you just three of what the things that I believe are more or the most relevant. First one is they might have a short term capacity need. They are running for a pilot project, for instance, and they if the project is successful, they will eventually have a baseline so that they can grow dynamically, right? This is
Yeah.
a short term
Yeah.
extra capacity need, right? For instance, or people that are they have plans to move into the cloud or going from mainframe to distributed type of environments. It's also very suitable to address those requirements. And one of the other important things, if we happen to have this type of customers that are MSPs or CSPs, that they need to move into per terabyte per month cost and the ability to build the clients and on
Yeah.
this type of business model, right? So there are multiple use cases that can be addressed by
Yeah,
having this type
I
of
think exploring the use cases and then, having a list of use cases that we want to address, that'd be one side of the matrix. The other side of the matrix would be
Mhm.
the STAS and the SUO offerings. How do they meet those use case demands, right? They're going to do it differently. They're going to be cost difference. And in the case of federal government, I have to understand those costs before I can go forward because I have to forward prime my budget cycle, right? But I think there are a number of new activities that are beginning in the government today that are going to need flexibility of storage provisioning, a lot of flexibility. Okay. There are another set of needs that are around data integrity, data privacy. Okay. Managing that. That's where the stuff in SUO looks interesting to me. Okay. So I think both of these offerings are worth evaluating. I'm done.
Oh, thanks for your comments.
Well, it's very clear that there are a lot of questions and there's a lot of interest in this. So again, I would make the shameless plug in the chat. Use the links. Go to the STAS page in Seismic or the SUO page in Seismic, and feel free to register for that webinar on the 15th. Where I think you'll get a lot of the information that you're hopefully seeking. I absolutely want to thank Julio and Michael for coming on today. It's clear they have a lot of knowledge and interest in this area to share with everybody. And I would ask them both, Julio, let's start with you, and then we can go to Michael. Do you have any final words that you'd like to say to folks?
So I'll jump in real quick. So there is people have asked for pay for use positioning. Why STAS or why storage utility, right? And the answer is for STAS, if the customer just wants to pick a performance level and have IBM take care of the configuration, right? And doesn't really want to try and predict their growth. STAS is the perfect answer. Plus, with STAS, customers can actually walk away at every anniversary because we bill for STAS. We bill 1 year at a time in advance, right? So they're paying, for the first year, 60 days before their anniversary, they get a notification: do you want to continue or not, right? So whether they sign a 5-year agreement or a 3-year agreement, they can opt to walk away at every anniversary with STAS, right? But as a result, the customer loses some technical control and the cost is a little bit higher, right? With storage utility, I think Roger pointed it out. We can do storage utility on any IBM platform, right? For STAS, it's just DS8 and Flash and TS7700. For storage utility, our entire portfolio is enabled for that, and people can configure whatever system they want, right? And I mentioned that customers can either pay for the cache, or they can pay for the base, or they can lease it, or they can rent it, right? So understanding the difference between utility and STAS is pretty important. But if you want help, deciding which way to go and which way to start with your client, you can always send, Julio or I or Roger or Mark, any of us, send us a meeting invite for 30 minutes. We'll get on and we'll talk about your opportunity before you get into it. But I will leave you with that. It is very important that you explore the materials that are on Seismic, because we do have step-by-step guides on both the SUO and on the STAS page for Seismic, where there's all kinds of information and charts. But I look forward to hearing from all of you and winning together.
I just wanted to leave you with three main key differentiators from the IBM and that differentiate from the rest of the competition. Michael, you already mentioned the possibility to this policy cancellation after the first anniversary. This is one of the key differentiators. No one else can offer that. The second thing is IBM charged on physical capacity, right? Not on the duplication or compressed type capacity. Is also an advantages. And the third, it's that we enable a single price per terabyte for the base and the variable through the course of the contract. So there's also a key differentiator amongst the competition. Three main things that make us apart, make IBM's offering apart. So that was kind of my final remarks, Roger and team.
All right. Well, fantastic. Once again, thank you, Julio. Thank you, Michael. With that, we'll turn it back over to Scott to close us out.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it. Thank you to Julio and Mark and Michael as well. So I appreciate everybody joining our call today. Hopefully this was a lively one. So it's obviously a pretty relevant topic to be talking through. So I will be ending the recording. I'll post that to our Mid-Market YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I'm at w.scott.wilson@ibm.com. And look for our next month's invite for December. Thank you again, everybody.